Welcome to Eclectic Selections, the human music recommendation service. My name is Liam Flanagan and I'll be your musical guide, recommending you the best in music, wherever and whenever it came from. You're currently watching our Eclectic Extra series, where once a month I'm going to be discussing a music recommendation that's a bonus for all of our followers across the internet. So now it's time to go over to either my past or my future self and see what recommendation I have for us. The subject of Eclectic Extra Episode 5, Princess Superstar Is by Princess Superstar. And that's the album we're going to talk about today. It's from 2001. And I remember at the time, hearing the Bad Babysitter single. I think I might have heard the Keith and Me single as well. I saw it in the shops and I was always intrigued by it. I always thought, oh, is this any good? Maybe it's good. At the time, you couldn't stream things. You couldn't find out if something was good easily in advance. And there was lots of doubts about her in the press. Let's have a look at the cover. We tend to start the video with that. So this is the CD cover, and I think there is a vinyl edition available, but that's the CD version. And I rediscovered this album earlier this year, and I have to say I wish I bought it 21 years ago, because it turns out it's great. So let's talk about a little bit about her career before, and then we'll talk about the album itself. And then I found out some interesting stuff about what she did afterwards. I thought she just vanished. Turns out she didn't. Princess Superstar, she records her first ever demos, hip-hop demos, in 1994, and goes on a bit of a journey with various independent labels wanting to sign her, and that leads to her 1996 debut album, Strictly Platinum, and then that is quickly followed up the following year by CEO, her second album, which she puts out on her own label, and she continues to release stuff on her own label for most of the rest of her career. So she truly is an independent hip-hop artist, but I think that's not how she was perceived because of the sound of the singles on this album. They are chunky, hooky, poppy raps about sex. She ended up getting a number 11 hit in the UK with Bad Babysitter. I don't think Keith and Me ever charted. She described her sound as flip-flop, which she says was a combination of hip-hop and electroclash. Electroclash was very popular at the time in the US and in Europe, but it was the celebration of the trashier side of electronic music. It was very inspired by 80s electro synth pop. So she very much fitted in with people like Peaches, who were coming out around that same time. Lots of artists who were very proud of being different, and also very sex positive artists. And she doesn't care what you think of her. She is who she is, and she expresses herself the way that she wants to. So it's very much an album of two halves. That's one of the things that almost immediately struck me about it. Is one half is more like the singles, and it's very braggadocious, which again doesn't really always necessarily go with underground hip hop. And then there's a few sex themed tracks. But in the second half, it focuses more on her own skill set as a lyricist and an MC, and not lyrically. She's not talking about it as much. She's demonstrating a wider range of skill. It's still, I will say though, it's still peppered with her trademark sense of humour, but it is a darker side to the album. It's closer to what you'd expect of a late 90s, early 90s underground hip hop album than anything from the first half. And when I was listening to this album at first, I thought, could this album have benefited from being sequenced in a different order? But I've probably listened to it 10 times now at least. I think actually they did the right thing. They sequenced it in the right way. It is a great album. I think if you just take each track as like you're going down the track listing and you're considering how good they are, it's a great album. There's a nice sprinkling of impressive guests throughout the album, including her hero, Cool Keith, on Keith and Me, singer-songwriter Beth Orton, who's probably most famous for her work with the Chemical Brothers, fellow female MC Bahamadia, and the first ever guest of Eclectic Selections, J-Zone. This is when he was back when he was still the rapping thing. He pops up on a track too, and again brings some of his humour, which is not a million miles from Princess Superstars, and it's a good little duet that they have going on. Then there's the production on this album. What's interesting is for her second and third albums, she got musicians in to back her up. But this was the first time she worked with a producer called Curtis. He doesn't produce every track on the album, but he does additional production on almost every track on the album. And he is recording it, he is mixing it, he is a record producer in that sense. Couldn't find anything out about him via Google. But there is a track produced by Mr. Len, for instance. He was part of Company Flow, who are a legendary underground hip-hop group at the time and since. And also there's a track produced by UK hip-hop duo The Herbaliser, who featured on episode 2 of our podcast. I'll pop a link down in the description for you guys to check out that episode. And that album that I recommend on that episode actually came out the year after this. So the production is not dissimilar. So it's a really, like I say, it's a really interesting album. It's this album of two halves. It's an album of sort of two different sets of lyrical themes and two different sets of musical sort of themes. But it's all great. It's all fantastic stuff. So what happened next? Because for me, I don't really ever remember hearing about her again. But in 2005, she put out a futuristic hip-hopera concept double album called My Machine, in which she collaborated with the likes of Arthur Baker, Jacques Leconte, Junior Sanchez, Armand van Helden, Todd Terry, and DJ Mighty Me. So she ended up with a number 3 single off of that album in the UK in 2007. Completely missed that. Then in 2009, she was featured on Grandmaster Flash's record The Bridge alongside Snoop Dogg and Busta Rhymes. So that's huge. In 2015, she appeared with comedian Margaret Cho on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The previous year, the two had collaborated on a song called My Booty is Efficient, which, let's face it, that's what we all want, an efficient booty. And in 2017, she recorded a children's album called These Are the Magic Days with producers Nacy, Steve Starks, Seafire, and it was engineered again by Curtis. The album was released in 2018 under the name Mom, M-O-M. So that was Princess Superstar Is by Princess Superstar. I'll put a link in the description so you can check that album out for yourselves, but it's a fantastic hidden gem. It's a fantastic gem of an early noughties hip-hop album that shouldn't have gone unnoticed for 21 years. So let's put that right now. Thank you all for watching this video. If you want to support Eclectic Selections and join our community, there are various ways that you can do that. Number 1, you can like, comment and subscribe right here on YouTube. This helps our video get noticed by the YouTube algorithm, and it helps other music lovers like you find great music. You can 2, follow us over on Twitter. Here you'll get the latest news and you'll get extra recommendations. You'll be able to keep up to date with everything Eclectic Selections. You can join our Ko-fi, which is just like Patreon, so you can support us and you'll get access to extra content like private playlists, extra video recommendations from our guests, all that good stuff, and there's more coming in the future. Join our Discord community where you can chat with other music lovers and myself about music and other subjects too. All the links for all of that down in the description in our link tree. Thanks again for watching, and until next Thursday, keep it eclectic.